the Cannon Sports Podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by the head coach of the Gardena Serra High School football program, Scott Altenberg. Welcome in, everybody, to the Cannon Sports Podcast. I'm Phil George, and our guest today, he's the head coach of Serra High School in Gardena. He owns more than 200 wins over 23 years as the head coach of the Cavaliers and 3 state championships. Coach Scott Altenberg.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you on, Coach. Would you like to give a brief introduction and let our viewers know about your background in the game of football?
Well, I've been at Serra High School for 28 years total. I was born in the South Bay, went to Bishop Montgomery High School, went to UCLA as a walk-on quarterback, got my master's from LMU, and started Serra High School as a 23-year-old teacher and assistant coach, and I've been here ever since. So it's been a great fit, and I'm just excited and happy to be at my job every day. It's a great job.
This program here at Serra has a storied history, both in terms of team success and the amount of players that have gone on to have outstanding careers, both at the collegiate level, at the NFL level, and even off the field, coming off of a state championship last year, one of 3 that you've won at this program. This year, 4-4, the number 15 ranked team in the state, and coming up on the postseason here in just a couple of weeks. This episode is going to be airing the week of your season finale against Chaminade. That's going to be a big, big game. But before we get into all of that, why don't you, in your own words, give our viewers a primer of where the 2022 season stands to this point?
Well, we've had kind of an interesting year. Coming off a state championship, you never really know how the kids are going to respond. We have a lot of young guys, especially at the quarterback position. Early on, we lost a couple games. One to Orange Lutheran, the first game of the year. We should have, we're up 14, maybe 17 points. End up losing in the fourth quarter. Made a couple huge mistakes at the end. But, young guys are going to do things like that. And then Long Beach Poly had a bad day offensively. They played really well. We lost that one. And then since that, we've been kind of on a roll up until last week where we lost a tough game to Sierra Canyon. We're on the 7-yard line with 3 minutes left in a tie game. You think you got a real chance. And we just made a couple bad plays, and they ended up scoring and beating us. So we are where we are. I feel like we're a good football team. I feel like we're getting better. Early on, our defense kind of carried us. And as our young quarterback started to figure out the way to, win games. And that's kind of where we are. We're excited about the future, but we know that because of everything that's gone on, we've got to go to work. We got to win at least one of these 2 games. Obviously, we're hoping to win both. But it's something that we feel like we're in a good place, even with the losses, to do well at the next level.
Yeah, and I feel like if you look at the standings and you look at the schedule and the record, the 4-4 record really doesn't tell the story of this team and how exceptional they are. Like you said, of the 4 losses, one of them was to Long Beach Poly, the number 4 team in the state, Orange Lutheran, number 11, and that was a game that was very, very close. I think it came down to one point. One point. And Sierra Canyon, which has had its struggles this year, but in the second half of the season has been a completely different team, very resurgent. So, even though the record may not exactly be where you want it, definitely a lot to be proud of. You mentioned some of the star young players on the team who are really coming into their own. What are some of the biggest highlights of this team that you're looking forward to finishing out the season strong and as we head into the postseason?
Well, the first thing is offensively we've been developing, and I think we've kind of built it around our running game behind Sincere Rainey and Kai Honda. They've been huge for us, carrying the load all season. And now, as as Jimmy Butler, our sophomore quarterback, who, by the way, just turned 15 last week, so he's a young guy. And, you put a young guy in these giant situations with these packed houses in these really important games, and they're going to make some mistakes. But I'm real proud of the way he's been developing. So I feel like offensively we're getting kind of catching up to where we normally are. So I think that, Zach Williams, a wide receiver who came to us this year as a transfer from St. John Bosco. He's a junior. He's been fantastic. And then it's been our defense. I think our defense struggled in the second half last week against Sierra Canyon. They did a couple really nice things to take advantage of some things. And, but I think that they've played well all year. We start playing better offensively, I think we're going to be a tough out. I think I really do. So, I'm excited.
You talk about a guy like Jimmy Butler, like you said, a sophomore who's playing on a big stage in some big games and has had to grow up and mature as a quarterback really, really quickly. Forgetting for the moment anything that he does the rest of this year to finish out this season. Obviously, you want him to have success, play at a top level, and win the big games as we close out this year. What kind of position does that put him in to succeed his last 2 years of high school?
Well, the way
any young player.
Yeah, the way things are now, it's about 1 year at a time. It's funny because after our first few games, I think I had probably 10 emails from parents like, hey, my kid's a quarterback. He's ready to come to Serra and play right now. And I'm just laughing. I'm like, oh, man, we must be really bad on offense. I'm getting a lot of emails about, people trying to, send me their kids right now to play. And so with that all going on, Jimmy being able to kind of fight through that shows a bit of mental toughness that I think is really a key for a quarterback. And we've had a lot of success. We've had 7 quarterbacks in a row signed Division I scholarships. So that's kind of a big deal. You're a young guy, you step into that. But we're about learning. Sometimes some programs really worry about who they play in their record, and my thing is I want to be good at the end. So I'm not afraid to play the tough teams early because I want to win every game. But if we lose and we learn, then kind of like last year, we're peaking when we need to peak. So that to me, a young player who learns and gets better, and you see the growth. You see it's there. Now some guys won't be able to do it, or maybe they just don't have it to excel. But you find that out, and that's one of the good things about having a good schedule.
As we head down the stretch here in the 2022 regular season, 2 games left in the regular season, going to need a little bit of help. We were running through it, the scenarios before the show. Going to need a little bit of the help to win that outright playoff berth,
right,
but very likely to make the postseason as an at-large bid. With these final 2 regular season games and looking down the road to postseason, what are some of the biggest areas that you're focused on, that you're really going to be paying attention to, and that you feel this team needs to kind of tighten up in order to have the best chance to succeed?
Well, first off, that we had a forfeit that when we played Notre Dame, we had a kid who was a sit-out period kid who, we had communicated with the CIF. We thought everything was fine. We made the error in not double-checking after we got all the information from them and ended up playing him 7 plays in the Notre Dame game and had to forfeit. And again, in the end, that's our fault. We didn't, cross the T's and dot the I's, so we had to forfeit the game. I feel terrible for our team that we did that and made that mistake, which put us in more of a bind. And then losing, obviously, the Sierra Canyon last week doesn't help. So basically for us, we're fighting to we got to get 500 to get at least be eligible to go. And then to get an at-large berth, our power ranking should be good enough, but you never know with that. But winning the last 2 games should put us in the 3rd place spot, which would be an automatic berth. But we feel like, that we will, if we get to 500, the schedule we've played and the fact that we've, put ourselves against good teams should get us in the current system with the power ranking, should get us to where we need to be. So we're just focusing on Alemany right now. Obviously, Chaminade's such a great team, and we've had such great games with them, and it's always been a fun game. So when that happens, we're gonna get going. But right now, it's all about Alemany getting that win, getting us to the position where we know we're going to at least be 500, and then go for that win over Chaminade.
With regard to the Notre Dame game and the forfeit, obviously, whether you're a player or a coach, you just hate to lose a game like that. You hate to lose any game like that, but especially a game, a game that results in a forfeit. But what I want to talk about is the positives to be gained from that and how your guys responded to that. I imagine there's a lot to be learned in the response that your team showed and the fortitude to, put it behind them and focus on the next man up. How did they respond to that situation?
Well, first it was, I had to respond appropriately because I was upset. I mean, this is my 23rd year as the head coach, and I've never had anything like this. You know, we've always prided ourselves in doing the right thing and following the rules. And in any time there's even a question, we investigate, we make sure, and we're kind of known for that. So for us to have to forfeit a game puts us, it's just not something we want. But for the kids, I mean, then we play Ahmad at home. Ahmad's a great team, and it's like, all right, now we got to win. And they came out and they played great, and they won the game. So to me, I think again that if you have to spin it, which you don't ever want to spin, that too much, because you want always to, you want to teach these young men to do the right thing and make sure you're following the rules and double checking, and try to explain, how that works. But they were able to overcome it. We didn't blame anybody, which is important. We blamed ourselves, and then we did what we had to do, which was win the game. So, for me, I feel like it was, it's disappointing because, again, as a person who's been 23 years and you think legacy and things like that, you don't ever want something like that to be so, oh, he's a cheater, this or that, because I don't believe that. Most people would say that about us. So,
and that's also got to say a lot about the character of you guys to be able to have that mentality.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's what are we doing, right? It's not a college program, it's not a pro program. We're dealing with young men, most of whom will not play pro football, most of whom will not play college football. So the idea that there's character to be learned in football or in anything sport team wise is big. And so I think that them learning that lesson and fighting through it and understanding that sometimes it doesn't go your way, but you got to keep fighting. It should help us. Now we end up winning one of these two games or both of these games, getting playoffs. Maybe that grit will come with us and follow us through the playoffs.
You said it just a second ago. Most of these guys aren't going to go and play in college and right. in the pros. That's something that every coach is aware of, and that's why there's so much more that you have to focus on other than just building good football players and winning football games. I took a look at your bio on the Serra High School website, and one of the first lines in the thing, before it mentions the championships, before it mentions the experience in coaching, it says that you send 100% of your students to college.
Yeah.
Tell me why that's such an important thing for you.
So our school, Serra High School, is a really small Catholic school. I mean, we have less than 400 kids in our school, co-ed, right, 9th through 12th grade. So we have 180 boys in the school, 190-something girls. And our goal is to get every single one of them to college. And every year, 100% of our kids get accepted to a 4-year university. And that's just the way it is. And that sometimes they choose to go JC or something like that. That's okay, but they're going to go to college. So for us, and that's kind of part of my mission over the years, I've had opportunities to go other places, college and different schools and stuff. And I just feel like the mission here is special and it's important. And the community we serve from Southern LA to Palos Verdes to, you name it, even Inland Empire, we really try to, get those young men and women to, buy into this place and buy into going to college and being, they're setting up their future. So that's a lot of why I'm here.
So, of course, with regard to a player who really has a future in this game, as a scholarship player at a 4-year university or even beyond that, there's obviously a very defined, very well-known role for the coach in that regard. Coach the kid up, teach him the skills he needs to succeed at this level and beyond. For a player that that their football career is over once they leave here, but you still have an active role in getting that player to college.
Sure.
What does that role look like?
So, I mean, on two parts there, the part about the young man that's not going to go to college, that I am as proud as anyone, as as Robert Woods or Adoree Jackson or any of those guys, as the kid that comes back as a lawyer, or a Titus Potter, for example, a lawyer in Chicago. He came back and he's like, Coach, I never, played a little for me, obviously, but then went to school, got his degree, and and now he's a lawyer, and it's awesome. He's telling me about his cases, and it's really cool. So that, to me, that's like, that's my job, right? And then coaching the kids that are going to go to the next level and play, that's also something about, we always talk about, we want our kids to go to college and play, but we also, the big thing is we want our kids to go to college and represent the teams at media days. That's a big deal. So we work on how you deal with the media. We work on how you talk and communicate. Robert Woods and I went on CBS News and Sports and different things and did interviews, and we worked on that because we felt like he was such a dynamic young man that he had a chance to earn a career after he's done, and that's kind of happening, right? So that's part of it. So that's kind of a thing, and we've had, and I don't have the numbers offhand right now, but we've had a lot of young men represent their school at the media day. To me, that's not just about being a good football player. That's also about you're good enough to represent the entire program.
Yeah, and you touched on a little bit of something that I wanted to talk about. We all know about Robert Woods. We all know about Adoree Jackson. We all know about all the players who have represented this program at a very high level on the national stage, on the football field. Not everybody knows a name. Did you say his name was Titus Potter?
Yeah, Titus Potter.
Yeah, not everybody knows a name like Titus Potter, but the fact is a guy like that is a part of the legacy of this program. And, just as a Robert Woods and Adoree Jackson represent Serra High School on national TV every Sunday, there's still a part to be played. What is the place in the legacy, in the history of this program of a guy like Titus Potter and everybody else like him who's had that kind of success off the field?
Well, so that's a lot of what we do. For me, we talk about like the what it means to be a Serra High School. We've had a lot of success with kids doing well at the next level, and a lot of it is because when they come here, they know that they're going to have to do a lot of things. They're not just going to be, we recruited you as a receiver, you're going to be a receiver, and then in the end, you're going to leave and go to wherever, and that's it. Now, here, for the most part, it's, you're going to have to, get your stuff ready and do your stuff when no one's coming by and squirting water in your face during practice. You're going to have to go get it. You're going to have to do all that stuff. So there's a level of this is what you have to do. And then when you leave, a level of expectation for others. And I fully promote my graduates to message my players and to tell them, hey, if you think that they're not holding up the legacy, then let them know. If you don't like the way they're behaving or this or that, let them know. And you have all the ownership in the world to do that. And that's kind of who we are. I'm sitting there and we're playing one of our games and early on, and my quarterbacks are all chiming in like on social media, hey, he needs to do this, and that's what I want, and I want them to be a part of it. And so I think that's kind of part of the secret sauce to us here is that we really, everyone talks about family and this and that, but we really have that tight knit because there's just not a lot of us. It's a small school.
Well, and that's obviously part of what any family is obviously showing love and support, but also being able to show that tough love and hold somebody accountable when maybe they're not representing the program or the family as somebody feels that they should be.
Well, it's funny because 2 years ago, I think Malik was a junior. We're playing in the COVID years. Our first game, we're playing Long Beach Poly, and they're doing something different. Maybe it was 3 years ago. And they're doing something different up front. We're screwing up in the first half. We're struggling. And so I'm going to halftime. I'm working on my stuff, and my phone keeps blowing up. I'm like looking at it going, oh. And it was Doug Brumfield, who's the starting quarterback at UNLV. And he's like, give me the phone to Malik. And so I literally, I'm like, oh, I give him the phone, and there is Doug talking to Malik about, hey, boom, 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 this is what I'm seeing, whatever. And then I take the phone back. I don't have to ask what he said because I know Doug knows what we want to do. But he was there, right there. And Malik was, okay, Malik, by the way, second half threw for 300 yards, and just kind of that was an interesting kind of deal right at halftime. And I know my quarterbacks. I know the quarterbacks I've had in the past. I know that they know what we want, and he was going to make sure that Malik knew. And then I did my stuff with him, and we went on from there.
I'm actually cracking up because I'm thinking of the movie The Blind Side and the scene where Sandra Bullock's in the stand. Yeah. She calls the coach on the field in the middle of the game. Yeah. I didn't realize that happened in real life. I thought that was just in the movie.
Well, normally I don't get a chance to look at my phone, but man, Doug was pretty persistent. So I finally said, okay, and then I gave it to Malik, and it worked out.
That's great. Man seems to know what he's talking about.
Yep.
I can't believe that we are almost 20 minutes into this show, and we have not mentioned Roderick Pleasant yet.
Yes.
That guy is one heck of a player. We've been out to cover a couple of your games this season, and he's gotten an interception in each one of them. He's scored a touchdown, kickoff return touchdown in one of them, and that's just the two games that we at Cannon Sports have the chance to see him in person. So, if you haven't gotten a chance to go out and see this kid play in person, give us the pitch about why you should.
Well, he is. Obviously, the speed is something else. I mean, one of the fastest people in the country. I mean, 10.14 or 10.16. I can't remember what it was last year.
10.14, the California state record in the 100-meter.
Yeah, so he can go, but he's a football player who runs track. I mean, I've said that before. Last year, he had a really bad ankle injury, and he played through it. Now, a lot of guys wouldn't do that. A lot of guys would say, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look bad. I'm not at full speed. But he said, no, Coach, if I can help the team, I'm going to go out there. There were games where he was limping everywhere, but just his presence made a difference. So he's a really tough kid. We've had some injuries in the defensive backfield, so I haven't been able to use him as much on offense. But, wow, the times I have used him, he's been very successful. I mean, he had like last week, he had 3 touches and 2 touchdowns. So on offense, it's a pretty good ratio.
3 touches, 2 of them went for touchdowns.
Yep, 2 of them went for touchdowns. So the idea is that, and that's something as we get healthier, the more he'll see of offense. That's kind of the idea. But with the teams we play, you can't hide, and like say, okay, we'll rest on defense. Well, no, you're gonna be threatened every play. So we had to have him. We had just very little backups at the time, so we're getting more healthy. So he'll play a lot more. But he's a shutdown corner with the ball in his hands. He's electric. He's just a great kid too. With all that, he's the first one. He's like, Coach, what do you need me to do? Blah blah blah. I said, I need you to be a decoy on this play. And he goes, I love it. And he sells it like nobody's business. And so that's the kind of kid you want.
Shutdown corner, versatile enough to play offense and return kickoffs, a threat to score every time he touches the ball, runs track and does it very well. Sounds a lot like another guy that you coach, and I know that a couple of others on your mind as well.
Right.
Sounds a lot to me like Adoree Jackson. I'm sure that's a comparison that you get a lot. Having coached both of them, describe the similarities.
So it's interesting because Adoree, same kind of thing. I used Adoree a lot on offense, and he was just lights out. I mean, he's known for that state championship play where he does a flip over everybody into the end zone. And I mean, he's such a great person. I mean, like Adoree is just one of the, the thing I miss most, and I tell people this all the time. I mean, for sure, you got this elite corner, offensive threat, whatever. But the thing I missed the most when he left was his practice enthusiasm. The guy was like the brightest light in practice. All, just such good energy, positive, and man, we fed off it for 4 years. I mean, he was so part of it. And when he left to go to college, it was like, oh man, what's different with practice? Well, Adoree's not here, Adoree just like everybody, patting people on the head and doing all the stuff and having just so much fun. So that's the kind of person he is. And he's, he's going to be successful. He is successful with that attitude. He's amazing. So Roderick's very similar. I mean, he has a lot of, similar qualities as far as his speed and his athleticism. For me, he's kind of one of those guys who I don't even know what he is. I remember, some of the coaches are asking me, is he offensive or defensive player? I say, well, corners are hard to find, so usually that's where people will put him. But I mean, you put the ball in his hands, and he's a tough out. So, it's exciting. I mean, by the way, the other thing that's great about Roderick is he really appreciates the history, right? He talks to Adoree. He appreciates that. He respects it, and he wants to do right by them.
So the two of them do have a relationship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Adoree's come up a few times, and last year they were running the track and doing some stuff, and so it's absolutely. And Adoree's been great. Adoree will. He came to one game last year, and he was like, giving him some pointers on the side, just like, hey, this is what you're looking at, and that's it. And that was the thing about Adoree. He was such a technician. Even though he could, he made a mistake, he could catch up in no time flat. But he just knew as the more you go, the further on you go, the harder that's going to be. So you might as well learn it now and get it down now.
Yeah, and if I'm a guy like Roderick, I can't think of a better mentor to have in that situation than Adoree. To have that in your pocket, or really any young player on this team. Sure. I hope they're all aware of how special it is to have that guy and so many of the other alums of this program.
Well, last year during the state title run, Robert Woods bought the whole team Beats to wear on the bus down to have on the bus going down to Orange County. I mean, it's very generous. And then after the season, Adoree bought all the championship rings for everybody. So
that's awesome.
So, I mean, it was just like, and I didn't ask them. They just did it. It was just, just kind of something you do. So
that's awesome. And it certainly says a lot about, and you touched on that earlier, the pride that they have in this program and how it really is, it's a lifetime involvement. It's not just for the 4 years that you're in high school. No. So we talked about both of them ran track. So I want to pose this to you. Rodrick, like we said, California state record holder in the 100-meter, 10.14 seconds. Adoree, his college best was 10:38. Okay, throw those numbers out for a second. You know it. You know it's coming. You coached them both. High school Adoree, high school Rodrick. Who wins the 100-meter?
Oh, well, I wouldn't put anything past Adoree. The guy was so competitive. The only guy I've ever seen be really, really competitive, and have the opponent, just be happy that they played against him. It was the craziest thing. He would do things and that other guys would try to do afterwards with some they would call it showboating. But when Adoree did it, it wasn't. It was somehow okay. I mean, he's just...
Yeah, when he did it, it was just athleticism.
It was just, no, but it was just he just was accepted that everybody loved him, and they'd be some guy that he just tormented all game is now taking selfies with him after the game. And it's that kind of thing. So Adoree would do anything, to be successful. But I don't know if Adoree could ever get up to 10-1. I mean, that would be tough. I think he would have trouble getting those 0.2 of a second out there. I mean,
that's a lot.
As far as I've never seen any human being quick jump better than Adoree. He could be in the middle of a 10-200 looking thing and then spring up, and he was like a jackrabbit in the air.
Crazy.
And that was nuts. Yeah, his athleticism. I don't think I've ever had an athlete like Adoree.
So talking more broadly about football players who run track, I was taking a look at this study. I want to run some numbers by you. So admittedly, it's a 4-year-old study. It was done in 2018, and it looked at U.S. Army All-American and Under Armour All-American participants. And the study found that of all the athletes who participated in that game, or those games at any position, 77% of them played multiple sports, 62% of them ran track, and specifically among running backs, wide receivers, and DBs, more than 80% of each of those position groups ran track. What do you make of those numbers? Because I know you've had a few of those guys who fall into that mold.
Well, I mean, that's one of our mantras here is you're going to be a multi-sport athlete. I mean, we only have 180 boys in the school. We wouldn't have other sports if we only specialized in one. So, I mean, I send all my DBs and my wide receivers, my backs, they all go to track after the season. I mean, they don't have a choice.
So you make it a point to have them run track.
No, and then if they play baseball, then they go to baseball or the basketball, whatever. If you don't play a sport, then you're with me, in off season. But we need, with a school of 180 boys, you need multi-sport athletes. We encourage it. I know this is the era of the single sport specialization. That's not us. I can't think of a better thing than for a young man to make a free throw in the 10 seconds left in the game to win the game, and how that's not going to translate to the football field, right? That's obviously going to translate. So to me, I want them playing multiple sports. I think it improves their overall athleticism. I think when kids specialize, I think they end up adding more injury to themselves because they're doing the same muscles, the same thing all year round. And I also think they don't improve their athleticism. They become really only athletic in the things that they do in that sport. So I'm all for it. I mean, we encourage it. We want it. We get them. We just had our first rugby meeting for this year. We're trying to get everybody in everything, something else. So it's big for us.
Like you said, even though we are in the era of the single sport, even now the top football athletes in the state this year, a lot of them still do play multiple sports. Obviously, we talked about Rodrick, who runs track, DeAndre Moore, wide receiver down at Bosco, he runs track. Nico, the top-rated quarterback out of Warren, he may be just as dominant on the volleyball court as he is on the football field. So even though sports have been shifting more in a way of specialization, there's definitely a lot of merit to, you play multiple sports and you're going to have a big chance to succeed.
Oh, we want that here. I mean, but that's, I know a lot of sports would love to have their kids 24/7, the whole year, but I don't see it. We do our best to get them to other sports, and that's just, I don't think you can. Those numbers you gave, they tell the story.
Yeah. So before we move on from this topic, obviously a guy like Rodrick and before him Adoree is just a matchup nightmare. No matter where they are on the field, offense, defense, special teams, they're really a guy that you cannot take your eyes off of. You cannot, you need to game plan for, and I'm sure you're lucky to have them on sure. You feel lucky to have them on your sideline and not anybody else's. To that end, who in your coaching career on the opposing sideline was a matchup nightmare like those guys are for you?
Oh, wow. It's been a lot. I mean, so many. I mean, we had, a bunch of great, with Long Beach Poly, we've had, we went up against Juju, and we went up against, just a bunch of the different guys for them. I mean, generally speaking, like when you play a lot of good teams, you look and you go, wow, that guy's really good. So, you talk about Nico at Warren. We've done that now twice with him. He's tough guy to deal with. So it's a lot. I mean, and that's the fun part about playing. I love playing great teams. Great coaches, great teams. When you get a team that you're going to have to be perfect on. I mean, that just makes it all that much better. So, just those names. I guess I don't know anymore. Just off the top of my head, there's so many. I'm old.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the Southern California football landscape is so rich with talent. I'm sure there's a new one every year. I'm sure there's guys that you could name this year that come to mind.
Absolutely, yeah.
So getting into your career and coaching generally, being at the same institution, 28 years, 23 years as the head coach, obviously players only come through in 4-year cycles. So at the high school level, there's no such thing as a Brady Belichick pairing, a coach and a star player who's together for, 2 decades essentially. But even then, what impact can you have at a program over multiple decades like you have that an equally talented, equally accomplished coach can't do in a shorter time?
Well, I mean, the one thing is it's culture, right? So if you create a culture where everyone knows what they're doing and they kind of like, we're going to be different. Like I'm a coach who believes my mantra is, if it ain't broke, break it, because eventually it will, right? So I want to stay ahead of the curve. So we're going to do different stuff all the time based on our talent. But if you create a culture in your program where people know what they need to do as far as what's expected, then you can have a Brady Belichick type thing. It's just a bunch of Bradys, in a row. And you get, like we did with quarterbacks, like I told you with Doug and Malik. I mean, Doug's telling Malik, hey, I don't know what you guys are running this year, but, this is what's happening. Let's, get our eyes on this and that and doing that stuff. So that's what you can do. And for me, when we talk about our program, we started, my first year, I think we were Division 11. We had 40 kids in the program. We were, we had to move up gradually. We got really, really fortunate to coach a lot of great players. But it's culture all day. Once you establish that, what you expect. I'm not one of those, real tight coaches who is like, you're going to do this and do that. I want the kids to express themselves. I want them to have fun playing football. I think you get your best out of them when they have, when they feel confident and they feel good and they're happy. So they know that, and they know that's kind of who I am. I think it all establishes a culture that can be successful, and that's why we've done well, done better some years than other years. But for the most part, we're going to be a tough out when we play someone.
I do love that mantra of, if it ain't broke, break it.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, nothing stays forever. So we want to stay ahead of the curve. That's our idea. You got to stay ahead of the curve. You got to be, because again, one of the things we do too is we play great coaches. That's the other thing. And that's why I love that, the chess game. And so when you get a great coach, we're playing Bishop Amat the other week, and we had a really good plan, and we were being successful. Then they came back and they made an adjustment, and they were successful. Then we came back and made another one, and it's just. And I go over it afterwards. I think, that was fun, And so you have to be ready to go and make the changes.
Yeah, and you talk about adaptation and making adjustments. That leads perfectly into another topic I wanted to bring up. So we obviously have had several different coaches on this show of several different backgrounds and, several different levels of experience. And a lot of those guys have been on the younger side of coaching. Guys like David Machuca over at Chaminade in his first year, Romeo Pelham and Evan Yabu at Milliken and Thousand Oaks, respectively, who have, only been head coaches for a very short time. And when I spoke with Evan Yabu, one thing, I talked to him about kind of the benefits and detriments of his relative youth to his coaching peers. And one thing that he pointed out as a plus was he said that, being on the younger end of the coaching spectrum allows him to kind of be more in tune with some of the newer advancements of the profession and embrace of technology, biometrics and movement tracking. He incorporates like holistic and spiritual methods into the training program, which are, words that you don't usually hear very often in a football context. So, what I wanted to ask you, what are some of the more significant ways that you've seen the coaching profession adapt over your time here? And what's been your experience adapting to those changes?
Well, it's a good question, because to me, that's kind of that's everything, adapting to something, right? So and I'm an older coach, but no one would ever accuse me of being set in my ways, right? That's not me in general. So we do yoga. We have a wonderful yoga teacher, Sarah Howard. She's amazing. She takes our program. We do that, once a week. We spend, I do as much as I can with technology all the time, because I don't know and I want to know, but I understand it's out there. But you look at a guy like Nick Saban or stuff like that, they're ahead of the curve. They're because they are forcing themselves to be ahead of the curve, right? So, it's we're not struggling programming our VCR, like grandma and grandpa back in the day, but we're looking to it. But the one thing you do, and I remember when I was a young coach, is you make mistakes, you learn from mistakes. When you're older, you hopefully learn from the mistakes you made, and you recognize when you're going down a chance to make another mistake. That's a big, big thing, right? You're like, okay, so something's not right here. And sometimes that helps, but I agree. I'm not as energetic as I once was. I'm a little bit older, but I hire young coaches, so that they're doing that as well. And I think that's the cool thing about football and coaching football is it is a chess match. And you do have young guys like that, and then older guys like me, and then, you're going at it, and they have a different look about it and a different way they do it, and I think that's great. I think it's neat when you have, just different ways people do things. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and to reflect again on another thing you said to that end in the interview was something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, something like, every corner I turn, I come across something that I wish I knew 2 years earlier that would have made my life easier.
Sure.
So you talked about some of the mistakes that you made as a young coach and some of the lessons that you learned. What were some of those important lessons that you learned along the way that, like him, you wish you knew 2 years earlier?
Well, first off, I thought I was an offensive genius and everything. I thought that's what mattered. And it does. Offense and defense and having good schemes really matters, but what matters more is your relationship with your players, because those are the ones that are going to do it. So you give me any offense or any defense, if you have a great culture and you have a great group of coaches who are getting across the message that you want, you're going to be successful. So I think early on, as most young coaches do, we think it's about us. We think it's about our schemes and our whatever. But in the end, you can call the greatest plays, and I've had great games and we haven't won. And then I've had games where feel like I didn't do a great job, and we won or lost. You get the idea. So you don't always, the results don't always match what happens. So but being able to adapt, right, and get the win at the end is what matters. And so you don't you want to learn, and you want to keep learning. I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people get lulled into the sense that, okay, there's a finish line, I know what I know, I'm good, let's make it happen. It's like, well, who knows, right? You run into somebody doing something different and you're like, okay, well, that's new, now how am I going to adjust? So I think it's a mindset. Let's
go ahead and talk about some of those players that you've put in college and at the NFL level. Right off the bat, one thing, if you take a look at the list of players who have gone on to have really standout careers, as of late, there is very much a Serra to USC pipeline. You know, we talked about guys like Adoree and Robert Woods, also guys like Deontay Burnett and Marquise Lee and several others. Is it just a matter of USC being right in the backyard, or how did that sort of pipeline, as you were?
Well, it's brutal because I'm a UCLA graduate.
That's what I understand. Your dad played there, right?
Yeah, my dad played there. I was a walk-on quarterback there. It's brutal. I mean, it's hard, but in the end, I want my guys to go where they want to go. You know, and at the time, you know, as Robert, I think would be the first big. Well, no, Rasheem Green. No, that was after. But we had Deshaun Harris, some other guys. They went to USC, and SC was the guy. You know, with Carroll and those guys, and coming off that whole deal, and they got really good players of ours, and then my guys are used to being in that family culture where the next guy does the next thing, and so Marquise, it was only natural for Marquise to follow Robert, and George Farmer to follow, and Deontay to follow, Marquise, and then Adoree to follow Deontay. They all played together, so at different times. And so that's kind of what happened. I wish it didn't because it made it hard when I'm watching the games and, trying to get my Bruins to win, and it's my players that are doing the damage. But, in the end, as a coach, you want them to go where they want to go. But right now, we got Devin Kirkwood's doing really well at UCLA. So
yeah, I was going to say this has to be a fun year for you because you've got a few players on that team, and they're having a heck of a season.
And Max Williams is at SC, so he's having a good year. So that'll be fun when those two play against each other. But it's in the end, like our thing is, we want our kids to be happy. We want them to go where they want to go. We want, and if it happens to be SC, then, so be it. So, it's fun.
Well, I'd imagine through that chain of guys that follow one another to a program like USC or anywhere else, there's a relationship that comes for you with the coaching staff, with the recruiters. What's that like? What's your communications with the guys over there?
Well, it's that's part of the job, and we're very we really work hard to have good relationships with college coaches because in the end, you want them to see and be exposed to and understand. But I never lie to college coaches. I always tell the truth. They know that they can count on me to give an accurate assessment, even the parts that aren't as good. And I think that helps us out. But in the end, I tell this to my parents. I tell this to everyone. Recruiting comes down to the player themselves, what they put on tape, what they put in the classroom. And even if I have the greatest relationship in the world with, like Chip Kelly and I have a great relationship, he's a offensive genius. He's a fantastic coach, and I talk to him all the time. But if that player doesn't fit their program, they're not going to take him just because they like me, So they're going to take the guy that fits the program, and I don't begrudge them that at all because it's their job in the end, right? So a person is going to do what's best for them and their job, rather than what I want them to do. Because, of course, I'd want all my kids to go play everywhere, but that's not the way it is. So what I tell my guys is, have your work done in the classroom, be ready to go, have great film, have a great motor, work your butt off, and then, and then exude that personality that you have, and you're going to be, you're going to have a lot of people looking after you.
When a program has a coaching change, obviously USC just went through that last year with the transition from Clay Helton to Lincoln Riley. Does that affect you in any way with the relationships that you have formed with the previous staff?
No, I mean, the only thing that affects me is my phone's a mess because it it says, Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma, when he calls, and it's like all over the place. Every guy, I don't know if any one of the schools are correct because coaches go everywhere. So like I always put their name and what school they're in, but I can't even keep up because everyone's moving around a lot. So no, I mean, you just know that what I want them to know is that if the kid comes out of Serra, that he's gonna be a competitor. He's gonna compete, and he's gonna be a good person and all that stuff. And I think that's been the case. I think that's why we've done well with recruiting. But not really. I mean, whichever school, who's ever there, whatever their goals are, and it's interesting because sometimes you'll have a guy come in and he'll be a completely different have a different like deal. Like Chip Kelly and Jim Moore could not have been any more different as far as the way they approached everything. And so, but both very effective, but just different. So you just, so you don't know what each one wants or whatever, So, I mean, Chip's like measuring kids' like index finger gap between their, and then Jim Moore was just like, hey, what's going on?
What do you learn by measuring somebody's index finger gap?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the index finger, but something. I don't know. But he's oh man, talk about staying ahead of the curve. Chip is that guy. I mean, he's so advanced in everything he does, and but that's big for them. Like they want to know that the measurables and different things like that also match up. So it's just interesting, And Jim Moore was more of a feel guy. Oh, that's a kid. I like this kid, and it maybe So it's just different. Everyone's different. You just kind of adjust as.
So moving up the ladder now to the NFL level. Before the show, we were trying to verify the number. By my math, I believe you have played a role in putting 17 players in the NFL. I guess that's kind of a good problem to have, that the number's so big that you don't know it offhand.
That's true, yeah. Again, that's, I would love to say that they came in here, unable to walk and chew gum, and now they're free NFL players. But a lot of it is God-given. I mean, they just amazing talent, great families, great work ethic, just a knack. We've started them on their path, maybe, and then they've gotten there. But it takes a special person to be able to play in the NFL, and not just talent on the field, but mental ability and just a grit that it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those guys have really carved out great standout careers for themselves. Multiple guys who were first or second rounders. Robert Woods just got himself a Super Bowl ring. When you think of all the guys that you have helped put at that level and everything that they have accomplished, not necessarily any one accomplishment or one person's accomplishment, but what stands out to you? You are most proud when one of your players does what at the NFL level?
Well, makes it and can play or keeps fighting. I mean, I have guys right now. I have Tyler Hall, who's been going from practice squad. I was with Khalil Tate the other day. He's still fighting to get in there. Talented kids who just want to play football as their career. And Deontay Burnett is still trying to, he was there. He had a cup of coffee here or there, and he's still trying to get on there. I just love that this is the career they've chosen, and they're going to keep fighting and getting there. I'm just, those guys make me real proud, And then of course, Robert and Adoree, the way they give back and the way they're just great human beings. I remember I sat with Sean McVay at Robert's wedding, and he explained that one of the biggest reasons why they went after Rob wasn't just his talent and all that, but it was just his locker room presence and all the stuff they heard about him as a person, and how that was such a big deal, And I think that affected that, because I think they did by trading him and not cutting him. And so I think they really respected Rob for that, So I think that's neat. When you and then I can talk about him to my team, and the alumni can look and say, hey, there's a Serra guy, stuff like that. So.
And those guys all come back and contribute.
Yeah. Oh, and just even just to come back and be here. I want my guys to see what it looks like. This is what it takes. This is how much you got to do to be successful. And those guys, Rob and the Adoree Marquis, they always come back. And whenever I ask them, if they're able, they'll be there, and they'll do a youth camp or whatever, and just just because they believe in the mission here too. So.
Yeah, and you said it right at the top of this segment that so much, almost all of the credit goes to them for the ability they have, the talent that they have, the work that they're able to put in. But you definitely have a part to play in helping them get to that next level. What do you view that part as?
I want them to try to maximize their potential. That's the thing. There's some guys that I know I have not been as successful with. I think that I've been like, God, I don't know why I couldn't reach that kid and get all this amazing talent. I couldn't get it out enough. But a lot of them I was able to, and not just me, my coaching staff. My coaching staff's been almost the same for the past 12 years. So that's really cool. But just having them, be able to get to the next thing. Like I had a great young man yesterday came, his name Malik Roberson. His nickname was Red Bull. He was a running back, And as a sophomore, I'm talking one of the top sophomore running backs in the nation. Like, guys were telling me, I mean, he was another like 10-2 100-meter guy in the 100, amazing kid. And they're like, man, if he was, and he was just after a sophomore year, if he was a senior now, he'd be our number one running back on the board. Well, that spring, he long jumps for the state title and tears his ACL, LCL, MCL, every L you got. He tears them all. And that kid fought his way back, missed his next season, came back as a senior, noticeable limp, still got a scholarship to San Jose State, had a decent career there, but now he's running after-school programs for kids. He's got his own business. He's doing really well with it. And he came by practice yesterday just to say hey and, what's going on. And I can't be more proud of him. Like, he's just an amazing person. He can do a lot of things, but he's giving back. He's giving back to the community. He's running after-school programs. He's doing great things. So that's the kind of thing that, like, I look at and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think we helped him with his determination and not giving up when he was, he had so much that he lost because of that injury. And yet here he is today, successful.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And that goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of the show. No matter whether you're on the football field, off the football field, you're representing this program, and right. Hopefully, especially in a case like that, doing it well with great values and setting a great example. Yeah. Before we go, we talked about your season outlook and looking ahead to the postseason. I want to talk about the Mission League more broadly. It's been a heck of a year for the Mission League, going back to the very beginning. Sierra Canyon was admitted prior to this year. It's been kind of an up and down year for them, kind of a tale of two seasons. Started off a little bit slow, really picked it up toward the end. Chaminade is undefeated. Like I said, this is going to be airing the week that you play them. I think back to a conversation that I had on the show with Tarek Fattel, the sports writer for the LA Daily News, and we were talking about the Mission League's ability to mix it up was the term he used. There's conversation every year, who can mix it up down in the Trinity League? And if you look at the results in the season, you guys played Orange Lutheran to within 1 point. Chaminade beat J. Serra. Sierra Canyon came within, I believe, a possession of beating J. Serra. So it's definitely, there's definitely the potential for some big upsets and for the Mission League to really make some noise in the postseason. What do you think? Oh, yeah. And that's one of the best things. I remember I was just talking to John, the head coach at Sierra Canyon, before our game, and I was telling them that it's a great league because you see different teams, you just see, and they're all good, they're all well coached, but you're going to see a Bishop Amat who's going to put 2-3 tight ends in there and just hammer it out at you, and then but also have some really clever stuff that they do and play really hard, and then you're going to go to Chaminade. They generally will be more spread out and do some different things, and then we're based on what we have, could be whatever any year. So it's a great. I think Alemany's been one of the Wildcat. Alemany was. Well, this year, yeah. But in the past, Alemany's had such talent. It's one of those things where, it really does help you in the playoffs because, like, you're going to see, this is a Alemany type team, or this is a Notre Dame type team, or this is that's what you're going to get, and he agreed. He's like, he goes, but the every week thing's tough, like you're not, like, even when you think you're like we played Notre Dame and we're thinking, okay, well, we should probably beat these guys, but I mean, they're really well coached, and they did a really good job of hanging in there and made it a really close game. And so we know that. And people are like, you only beat them by a touchdown. I'm like, well, they're good. They got good players, and they and we're young, so that's what's going to happen. So it is. The Mission League is a really good league in a lot of ways. A way more. It's high level, but very balanced, right? I mean, even whoever comes in last, they're going to be still a team that can beat you, right? Now, I know the Trinity League obviously has those two monsters in it, and I don't know if anyone beat them, but the rest of them, that's tough. They know that those two games are going to be really hard, and then they're playing for the rest. So that's not the case in the Mission League. Any year, it can be anybody. So I like that. I think that's cool. Well, it's definitely going to be a thrilling close to the regular season, and I'm sure an exciting postseason as well. Want to wish you the best of luck as we reach the conclusion of the 2022 season. You want to shout anything out before we go?
No, I just appreciate it. I'm a big fan of these podcasts and things like that. I think it's great for highlighting high school sports. I think everyone, it's a great, go to a game, see the sport. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I think I appreciate you guys, shining light on it.
Appreciate that, and appreciate you for joining us. Head coach Scott Altenberg, Serra High School in Gardena. And we want to thank all of you for tuning into the Cannon Sports Podcast. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Thank you once again to Scott Altenberg and the Serra program for having us out here, and we will see you all next time on the Cannon Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and follow on Instagram at Cannon Sports, TikTok at Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs.